This is our CBS News Minnesota update. I'm Heather Brown, in for Jason this morning, so don't worry. He is still around here. He's just on vacation this week. They're going to the National Debate Championship, so lots of fun for him. He'll be back next week for his final week there, but you got me here now, so let's get you straight up to speed on the news and on the weather, because it is a busy weather day outside. Let's take a live look here in downtown Minneapolis. You can see those raindrops on our lens here, and that's because it has been raining just for about an hour or so here in the metro. A lot of these severe thunderstorms coming up from the south and the west here in the outstate of Minnesota. You can see a lot of the severe thunderstorms. We have a warning right now down near the Faribault area, and that rain is headed our way. You can see by noon a lot of this will have cleared out. It is sticky outside though. You are just getting yourself prepared for what is to come tomorrow. 97 degrees, but it's going to feel like it's in the 100s. So drink up that extra water today to get yourself ready for tomorrow. But this rain should clear out this morning. Spotty storms this afternoon, but by nighttime, it's just going to be sticky. Let's get talking about this, though. It turns out the pandemic, and then you throw inflation. It's having a ripple effect on how much Americans are tipping right now. This is from a new survey out of creditcards.com. It says, you remember when they asked Americans sort of in the early days when everybody was getting takeout or some of the restaurants were just opening up? The responses said, we want to tip more. We know people are having a tough time. It's not so great. But what's turned out over the past couple of years is we're actually tipping less. Fewer Americans leaving tips entirely at restaurants. They're just leaving full tips at restaurants, hotels, food delivery, rideshare. And then when they do leave the tips, those tips are lower. And good reason for this, though, right? I mean, think about inflation, taking more money for goods and services when you get gas at almost $5 a gallon there. I mean, the other thing that's happening here at the same time is there's a shortage of employees. We know this in every single industry, and the restaurant industry hitting especially hard there. So there are times where you go to a restaurant and maybe it's not the service that you expected, but maybe there's not enough people working at the restaurant. So we wanted to know, we wanted to hear what's been your experience. What did you say early on about tipping? What are you tipping now? Have your habits changed since the start of the pandemic? If you're watching here on Facebook, leave us a message in the comments and we'll read a few of those later on in the show. Senate negotiators have reached an agreement on a framework to reform the nation's gun laws. This coming from a bipartisan group of 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans. They say they'll introduce legislation that would focus on limiting some gun sales and then also increasing federal support for mental health services and for school security, but they're not going to touch the age to be able to buy a gun. The House committee investigating the Capitol Hill riots will hold its second public hearing. That's going to happen this morning, 9 o'clock our time. Committee members say that they will present evidence tying the events of January 6th to former President Donald Trump's claim that he had won the 2020 election. Now, former President Trump's 2020 campaign manager is one of those who is scheduled to testify today. So we have a little bit of good news at the gas pump this morning. I mean, it's not great news. It's a little bit of good news, right? Average in Minnesota stayed about the same overnight, just going up by about fractions of a penny. So it's not going up as high as it was. That's our good news there. Costs, though, still at an all-time high. The national average, it's not as bad here as it is there. $5 mark there. These prices coming after a 2-week stretch of breaking records. I mean, breaking records by multiple cents each and every day. So if you're just going up less than a penny, maybe we're starting to see the peak. It's hard to know. It's really hard to have any idea what's going to happen. You also have to see what's going to happen during tornado season coming up too. So, but this price surge we know goes well beyond the pump. We are seeing those numbers climb everywhere. You got the grocery store, the car lot, the furniture, these appliances. So where do we go from here?
So we're now in a period of stagflation, meaning lower growth and higher inflation. The darkest period is that inflation persists, heads to 9%. People start worrying that it's going to go to 10%. And next thing you know, we end up in a recession. And that would be tragic if that were to happen. Because again, it is the most vulnerable segments of the population that get hit hard. What's the best is that the Fed regains control of the inflation narrative, and we have what's called a soft landing. Inflation comes down without us sacrificing growth too much. Unfortunately, the balance of risks is tilted in the negative way right now.
It's an effort to rein in inflation. The Federal Reserve is expected to meet and raise interest rates next week or later this week. Now, if you are traveling by air, you will not need a negative COVID test to get back into the U.S. Remember, flyers were required to test negative to enter the country. This has been since January of last year. Well, the Biden administration now says it's not necessary, and they're basing this on the latest science and data. CDC, though, says that it will reevaluate this decision over the next few months. FDA says that Pfizer's COVID vaccine appears to be safe and effective for our kids under the age of 5. This is great news. Regulators set to vote on this one this week. Also setting to vote on giving out the shots. So if it's approved, our smallest little ones could receive a vaccine as early as next week, breathing a sigh of relief for many, many parents out there. Crowds lined up at Moscow's Pushkin Square to check out the new fast food restaurant that has replaced Russia's first McDonald's outlet. So it operated there for nearly 30 years. But after Russia invaded Ukraine, McDonald's sold its 850 Russian restaurants to a businessman who's now opening the rebranded stores, all under a new name. And the new name in English roughly translates to tasty, and that's it. Menu's smaller, pretty much the same food, though. It just doesn't have the McDonald's names and branding. A lot of big moments celebrating the very best of Broadway at last night's Tony Awards. In a strange loop,
I'm barely scraping by.
I love this. Triumphed at the Tonys show about a black gay writer's struggles to create his own musical and break free from self-doubt. That won the Tony for Best Musical. Now, Jennifer Hudson is a producer on the show, which means that she got that EGOT status. Of course she did. So she got the Tony. Now she can add to her collection of Emmy, Grammy, and Oscar. So way to go there. Awesome. Sad news, though, from country music star Toby Keith. He revealed online that he has stomach cancer. Musician says that he's been fighting the cancer for 6 months now. He's been going through surgery and chemo and radiation. Toby Keith says that he is recovering well. According to his website, he's still planning a concert in Illinois this Friday, but he has said that some of these concerts are going to have to be rescheduled. Jurassic World Dominion roared its way to the top of the weekend box office. The Jurassic Park sequel brought in about $143 million for its opening weekend. What? We thought so. Top Gun Maverick still doing well up there. Still in those rarefied movie skies, falling only 44% in its third weekend. I mean, it brought in $50 million in the third weekend. That's a big deal. That film is now closing in on the $400 million mark in total sales. Weddings are always a day to remember forever, but one that just happened in Kansas has another reason to be unforgettable. So you're looking at tornado damage here. This is from a twister that touched down just a matter of yards away from where a wedding was in full swing. The newlyweds were actually out taking their photos when the storm hit, and all of the guests had to shelter inside of the venue. This is after it had all passed through. A couple says that they can't wait to tell their story for years to come.
I've never even seen a tornado in my life, never even been in that situation, and I'm like, we get it on our wedding day, and it'll be unbelievable to look back, tell our grandkids, tell our kids, tell anybody that like we went through a tornado on our wedding day.
And the news crew shows up on your wedding day in your beautiful dress there. Now, all good news here. Nobody was hurt. And as you can see, while the tornado might have caused a scare, well, they are not stopping the party. So congrats to the newlyweds and congrats to the entire wedding party. Nobody was hurt. Let's get back to today's talker, because we had asked you how you feel about tipping. What are you doing right now? Let's have Deborah start us off. She says, at a restaurant, I always tip 20%, and I feel if I can't afford the tip, I can't go out to eat. However, with the high cost of gas and food, I've gone from tipping my hairdresser 20 to 15%, and Deborah says that's not what I would have wanted to have to do. So what else are you saying out there? What else comments do you have? We have Annette saying my tips are getting lower because I just can't afford it anymore. I feel so bad, but I still tip 20%. I used to tip more. Yeah, I wonder if that's happening. With everything going up, I am really struggling, just not going out as much because of inflation of prices and everything. It's not just gas. Yep, you're right. In that, you go to the grocery store and whew. Diana says, I've only been to an actual restaurant 3 times in the last 2 years, but we had tipped according to service. Yeah, there you go. Deborah says, still tip the same as before. Right, so everybody's doing something different here. It's affecting all of us sort of differently. Kelly says, if you can't afford to tip appropriately, do not go out. You get your food to go, which a lot of times, should be tipping there as well. So this is a tough one. But thanks everybody for sending in your comments here, for watching here on our mid-morning update. This is from CBS News Minnesota. We are your only local streaming news source. Great to see you here today, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7:30.